I'm 37, and my family just discovered I'm not the failure they believed me to be. The desperation in their voices outside my door almost makes up for 15 years of being their punching bag. Almost. Let me start from the beginning. My father, Marcus, celebrated his retirement last weekend after 4 decades at an industrial facility. There was a big celebration, full catering, everything you'd expect. I wasn't on the guest list. I only learned about it when my cousin Tyler shared pictures online a few days beforehand. The location was an upscale hotel conference center in the city. Roughly 200 attendees. When I phoned my mother, Patricia, to understand why I hadn't received an invitation, she literally laughed at me. She explained they worried I couldn't cover the fuel costs to get there, and they didn't want the embarrassment of me hitting up their guests for cash. She delivered this explanation as though it were perfectly logical. Here's the context you need about my family dynamics. I'm the baby of 3 boys. My eldest brother, Michael, manages an automotive dealership. My middle brother, Derek, is in property sales. Both are married with children and earn comfortable incomes. Then there's me. College wasn't in my cards because I dedicated my early 20s to caring for my grandmother, Ruth, during her battle with cancer. Someone in the family had to step up, and I was the natural selection since I wasn't pursuing anything significant anyway. Those were actually my father's words when we had that discussion. I relocated to her home, managed her prescriptions, transported her to medical appointments, prepared her food. She passed away when I was 26. Afterward, I struggled to find direction. I began working for delivery services because the flexibility suited me and I needed income. My family interpreted this as proof of my inadequacy. Every family event became a platform to highlight my wasted potential. My brothers discussed their business metrics while I sat silently. My mother introduced me to acquaintances as her son who never discovered his path. My father stopped inquiring about my employment entirely. 3 years back, something shifted. Father mentioned retirement finances at our holiday dinner. He expressed concerns about money. The facility had reduced their pension benefits, and he was looking at possibly 60% of his projections. My mother worried about their home loan. They'd refinanced multiple times and still faced 15 years of payments. Michael suggested selling and moving to something smaller, but Mother rejected that idea. That house represented her standing in the community. I volunteered to contribute. I mentioned I'd been accumulating savings and could help with their monthly payments. My father regarded me as if I'd offered him play currency. He actually remarked, "Where would someone like you get legitimate money? Your food delivery gratuities." Everyone at the table found that amusing, but I was genuine. I'd been setting aside funds for years. Small amounts initially, but they accumulated. I maintained minimal expenses, living well beneath my capabilities in a lower-level unit that cost me practically nothing. I'd been making consistent investments. I had resources, far more than they imagined, but they dismissed my offer. Father stated he'd rather secure a second mortgage than accept funds from his son who delivered takeout for income. I stopped offering after that exchange, and I minimized attendance at family functions unless absolutely required. They still contacted me when they needed favors, though. Derek needed assistance relocating furniture. Michael required someone to watch his pets for a week. Mother needed transportation to medical visits when Father was working. I provided these services because they were family. So when I discovered Father's retirement celebration, I decided I was finished being overlooked. I purchased him a present, a quality one, a collectible timepiece from an estate auction, likely valued at $1,500. I had it professionally maintained and serviced, placed it in an elegant display case. I arrived at that hotel that evening and entered that conference room with my gift. The venue quieted when I appeared, not immediately, but in a gradual wave as people noticed my presence. I wore my everyday attire, denim and a casual jacket, because I wasn't attempting to impress anyone. I simply wanted to present my father with his gift. I located him near the beverage area, conversing with his former colleague. He spotted me approaching, and his expression transformed from confusion to anger. Father said, "What are you doing here?" Loud enough that nearby conversations ceased. I explained I wanted to give him a retirement present. I extended the case. He didn't accept it. He glanced around at his associates, then back at me. He announced, "Unbelievable, the disappointment actually showed up. Someone should contact security." People chuckled. I initially thought perhaps he was joking, but his expression was dead serious. My mother materialized suddenly. She grabbed a microphone from the entertainment booth. I don't know why they handed it to her. She broadcast this to the entire venue. That's our youngest son, 37 years old, unemployed, single, directionless. Everyone should know who just entered. The room fell completely silent. I stood there clutching this case. My brother Derek pushed through the crowd and confronted me directly. He stated, "You still owe me $300 from the holidays, deadbeat." I'd borrowed funds from him 2 years prior for vehicle maintenance and repaid him within 30 days. But apparently, he'd decided otherwise. My uncle on father's side began laughing and informed everyone I earned below minimum wage doing delivery runs. My Aunt Diane, father's sister, announced that I resided in a basement unit with insects and she'd viewed photographs. I don't have insects. I've never had insects. One of father's co-workers inquired if I was the person who got rejected from a store position. Father confirmed and stated it happened 3 times, none of which was accurate. I'd never sought retail employment, but he presented it as established fact. Mother added they'd been informing people I was backpacking through Europe because that was preferable to acknowledging my existence. My cousin Tyler shouted that even people living on streets had more dignity than me. I placed the gift on the closest table. I looked at my father and said, "Enjoy your retirement." Then I departed. Nobody pursued me. Nobody expressed regret. I heard their laughter as I exited. I returned home and sat in my unit. I didn't feel sadness precisely. I felt clarity, like something I'd been anticipating had finally occurred. I'd spent years thinking perhaps they'd eventually view me differently. Perhaps they'd recognize I wasn't a failure, but they'd made their stance crystal clear. They needed me to be the family embarrassment. It provided them someone to feel superior to. Here's what they're unaware of. I'm not financially struggling. That basement unit I occupy, I own the entire building. Purchased it 7 years ago as an investment. I live in the basement because it's economical, and the other 3 units generate revenue. I have investments. Not a fortune, but sufficient that I haven't needed to stress about finances in years. The delivery work is something I do because I enjoy driving and listening to audio content and not having a supervisor. It's not my identity. It's simply employment. I also have something else they don't know about. When my grandmother died, she bequeathed me her property. My parents assumed she'd left everything to my father since he was her only offspring. But she'd modified her will during her final year. She informed me she was doing it, but I never mentioned it to anyone. The property was mortgage-free. I sold it and invested the proceeds. That's where my actual financial foundation originated. My family has no idea. Sunday morning, I received a message from Derek questioning why I was attempting to destroy Father's evening. Nothing from my parents, nothing from Michael. I didn't reply. I proceeded with my day, completed some deliveries, returned home, watched television, went to sleep around 11. At 4 in the morning, I awoke to hammering on my door. Loud, frantic hammering. Then voices, numerous voices. My father shouting my name. My mother weeping. Derek saying, please, please open up. I rose and looked through the viewer. My entire family stood in the corridor. Mother, father, both brothers, my aunt, my uncle, all of them. Mother was crying intensely like someone had perished. Father's face was crimson and panicked. They were claiming they were sorry, claiming they were kidding, claiming I was family, saying, "Please make it stop, make what stop?" I had no clue. I didn't open the door. I stood there observing them through the viewer. My father pounded again and yelled they needed to speak with me immediately. It was urgent. They apologized for everything, but I had to admit them. I returned to bed. The pounding persisted for approximately 20 minutes. Then it ceased. I checked the viewer again and the corridor was vacant. I got back in bed but couldn't rest. My phone was exploding with messages and calls, all from family members, all expressing similar things. "We apologize. We need to communicate. Please respond. This is critical." "We were mistaken. Please." I powered off my phone and returned to sleep. When I woke at 9, I turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, 42 messages, 3 voice recordings. I listened to one recording. It was my mother pleading with me to return her call, stating they needed my assistance desperately, stating she'd do anything. I still haven't contacted them. It's been 2 days. They keep attempting. They appeared at my building again Monday evening. I didn't respond. They tried contacting my landlord until they realized I am the landlord. They don't know how to proceed now. And I'm sitting here attempting to determine what they want from me so urgently that they'd spend hours hammering on my door at 4 in the morning. The feedback on my previous post was incredible. Some of you guessed accurately. Some were completely off. A few told me I should simply forgive them because they're family. And honestly, respectfully, those comments amused me. You don't humiliate someone for 15 years and then receive forgiveness because you need something. I need to backtrack slightly and explain something I didn't mention previously. When my grandmother Ruth died and left me her property, there was something else in the will. She had a life insurance policy. Nothing enormous, but it was specifically allocated for her final arrangements, and anything remaining was supposed to go to my father. Except she'd changed the beneficiary to me roughly 6 months before her death. I discovered this when the insurance company contacted me. It was $48,000 after they covered her funeral expenses and outstanding medical bills. My father was anticipating that money. He'd been depending on it. When he learned I received it instead, he was livid. He contacted me and stated I needed to do the honorable thing and transfer him that money since it was clearly intended for him as her son. I informed him the policy listed my name and that was grandmother's decision, not mine. He claimed I'd obviously manipulated her when she was ill and vulnerable. Said I'd exploited her trust. My mother got on the line and cried about how disrespectful I was being to my father. How could I retain money that should have been his? I told them I wasn't surrendering anything, and if they continued harassing me about it, I'd stop accepting their calls. They eventually backed down, but it damaged things permanently. That was 11 years ago. They've referenced it perhaps a dozen times since then in various ways. Usually when they're angry at me about something else. You stole from your own father. You manipulated a dying woman. You're a thief. I never responded to it. Just allowed them to express what they wanted. So Tuesday morning I'm at home and my phone begins ringing at 7. It's Derek. I don't answer. He calls back immediately. Then Michael calls, then my father, then my mother. This continues for 10 minutes straight, just rotating through the 4 of them. I finally answer when Derek calls for the 4th attempt. He's speaking rapidly, words overlapping. States they need to meet with me today, immediately if possible. It's extremely urgent and they apologize about everything that occurred at the celebration. I ask him what this concerns. He states they need to discuss it face to face. I tell him no. If he wants to communicate with me, he can do it right now on the phone or not at all. There's silence. Then I hear him speaking to someone else. Sounds like he's covering the receiver. When he returns, he says fine. They'll explain. He informs me my parents are in serious financial difficulty. They fell behind on their home loan payments during the health crisis and never recovered. They've been making partial payments for 3 years, attempting to get current, but the bank's patience has expired. They're facing foreclosure. They have 90 days to pay $26,000 or they lose the property. I don't say anything. Derek continues speaking. States mother and father are devastated. Says they've attempted everything. They applied for a loan restructuring but were denied. They investigated a reverse mortgage but don't qualify because of the existing obligation. Michael offered to assist, but he's got his own issues with the dealership. Derek's got problems with a failed property investment. Neither of them can produce that kind of money currently. I inquire why they think I can assist. Derek actually laughs, this bitter sound. States they know I've got resources. Says Aunt Diane did some investigating and discovered I own my building. Says they examined property records and saw I purchased it for cash 7 years ago. Says they know about grandmother's life insurance money and her property, and they know I've been sitting on all of it while pretending to be struggling. I tell Derek that's fascinating detective work, but I'm not certain why it concerns me. He gets frustrated, states I'm their brother, their son. I can't simply allow them to lose their property. I remind him that 4 days ago he labeled me a deadbeat in front of 200 people. He states he's sorry. They're all sorry. They were foolish and intoxicated and showing off. Says this is more significant than some stupid remarks at a celebration. I ask him if father's sorry. Derek goes quiet again. Then I hear my father's voice in the background instructing Derek to hand him the phone. My father gets on and his voice has this forced composure to it. States we need to communicate man to man about this situation. Says he knows there's been friction between us, but family has to support family. I ask him if he remembers what he said to me on that evening. He states he already apologized for that. They all did, and we need to move beyond it. I tell him he didn't apologize. He appeared at my door at 4 in the morning panicking and pleading, but he never actually said he was sorry for his actions. Father states he's saying it now. He's sorry. They're all sorry. Now can we please focus on the actual problem here? I ask him what the actual problem is. He states the actual problem is his property, his mortgage, his financial situation that could have been prevented if I'd done the proper thing years ago. This is where I start laughing. I can't help it. I ask him if he's genuinely blaming me for his mortgage problems. He states if I'd transferred him that insurance money like I should have, he would have reduced his mortgage and wouldn't be in this position. He states I created this problem by retaining money that wasn't mine. I tell him that's an interesting perspective, but I'm going to decline helping him. He starts yelling, states I owe him, states after everything they did for me, raising me, feeding me, providing shelter for 18 years, this is how I repay them. I hang up. Derek calls back immediately. I don't answer. They call 17 more times over the next hour. I block all their numbers. Here's where it becomes complicated. Tuesday afternoon, I'm out completing deliveries and I stop at a fuel station. I'm filling my vehicle when Michael pulls into the adjacent spot. This isn't coincidental. He followed me. He exits and approaches and begins speaking before I can say anything. Michael informs me he understands I'm angry, but I need to consider Mother. States she's not sleeping. She's barely eating. She's terrified of losing the property she's resided in for 30 years. States this isn't about Father or him or Derek. It's about our mother and whether I'm the type of person who can watch her suffer. I tell Michael that Mother stood before 200 people and stated she wished I didn't exist. Michael states she didn't intend it like that. I ask him how precisely she intended it. He doesn't have an answer. I finish filling my tank. Michael follows me inside when I go to pay. He's still speaking. States they need an answer by Friday because that's when the bank requires the payment. States they're requesting a loan from me, not a gift. They'll repay me over time with interest if I desire. I ask him how they plan to repay me when they can't even make their current mortgage payment. He states once they get current, they'll be fine. They just need assistance getting over this obstacle. I pay for my fuel and walk back to my vehicle. Michael grabs my arm, not forcefully, just enough to stop me. He states I need to understand that if Mother and Father lose this property, they're going to have to relocate with one of them, probably him since his house is largest. States his wife Sandra is already stressed about it. States this is going to affect everyone in the family, not just Mother and Father. I pull my arm away and tell Michael that sounds like a family problem. He asks if I'm really not part of this family anymore. I tell him I stopped being part of this family when Father called me a loser in front of everyone he's ever worked with. Michael states I'm being petty. States this is people's lives and homes and I'm acting like a child holding a grudge. I get in my vehicle. Michael stands there looking defeated. As I'm driving away, he shouts that they're going to resolve this without me, and I'm going to regret not assisting when I had the opportunity. I drive off. Wednesday, they attempt a different approach. My Aunt Diane appears at my building around 6 in the evening. She knocks on my door. I look through the viewer and see her standing there with this apologetic expression. I don't open the door. She starts speaking anyway, loud enough that I can hear through the door. She states she's not here on behalf of my parents. She's here as someone who cares about me. States she knows they treated me terribly, and she's ashamed she participated. States when she made that comment about insects, she was intoxicated and attempting to get laughs, and it was cruel. States she's genuinely sorry. I still don't open the door. She keeps speaking. Diane states she's worried about what this is doing to the family. States my parents are desperate, and when people are desperate, they make poor decisions. States my father has been discussing taking out a predatory high-interest loan, and that's going to destroy them financially for the remainder of their lives. States if I could just loan them even half the money they need, it would buy them time to determine something else. I open the door. Diane looks relieved. I tell her I appreciate her coming here, but I'm not interested in helping people who spent 15 years ensuring I knew how worthless they thought I was. She states they never thought I was worthless. They just didn't understand my decisions. I ask her what decisions precisely. The decision to care for grandmother while everyone else was too occupied. The decision to live modestly and save money. The decision to not boast about my finances. Diane doesn't have an answer. She states family is complicated and everyone makes mistakes. I tell her she's correct and their mistake was assuming I'd forget how they treated me. She tears up. States she hopes I can find it in myself to forgive them someday. I close the door. Thursday morning, I receive a message from a number I don't recognize. It's my mother using someone else's device. She states she knows I blocked them, but she needs me to listen. States they're going to lose everything. States father's pride is destroyed and he's admitted he was wrong about me. States he wants to apologize properly if I'll just meet with them. I don't respond. 10 minutes later, another message from a different number. It's father. States he's not too proud to plead. States he'll get on his knees before me if that's what I desire. States to name my terms. Whatever I need from him to make this correct. I block both numbers. Thursday afternoon, Derek appears at my building with his wife. I don't know her well. We've perhaps spoken a dozen times in the years they've been married. She knocks on my door while Derek stands back. When I open it, she immediately starts crying. States she's sorry for bothering me, but she's desperate. States Derek's been having anxiety attacks about mother and father losing their property. States he feels responsible because he's the one who convinced them to refinance their mortgage 10 years ago, and now he thinks this is his fault. I tell her I'm sorry Derek's having anxiety attacks, but that's not my problem. She states please just consider it. States they'll do anything. I ask her what anything means. She states whatever I want. Apologies, family therapy. Derek and Michael publicly admitting they were wrong about me. Whatever it takes, I tell her I'll think about it. She thanks me and leaves. I'm not going to help them. I want to be transparent about that. I've spent years being their punching bag and their backup plan and their disappointment. I've watched them dismiss everything I accomplished, mock every choice I made, and treat me like I was something embarrassing they had to tolerate. And now that they need me, now that I have something they want, they're willing to apologize. They're willing to admit they were wrong. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. But watching them scramble is the most satisfaction I've felt in 15 years. The feedback telling me to stand my ground is giving me life right now. To the person who stated my family sounds like they're from a reality television program, you're not wrong. This week has been absolutely unhinged. Friday was the deadline Derek mentioned for the bank payment. I knew they'd attempt something significant.
What I didn't anticipate was getting ambushed at the supermarket at 10 in the morning. I'm in the produce area comparing fruit when I look up and see my entire family walking toward me.
Mother, father, both brothers, Michael's wife Sandra, Derek's wife, even my cousin Tyler. They spread out around me like they're attempting to prevent me from departing. The store isn't crowded, but there are enough people around that this is awkward for everyone. Father starts speaking immediately. States they need 5 minutes of my time. I tell him I'm shopping. He states this can't wait any longer. Today's Friday, and they need an answer. I point out that I never agreed to provide them an answer, and also they're making a scene. Mother starts crying. Real tears, not manufactured ones. States she can't believe her own son would rather see them homeless than assist them. I look at Michael and ask if he organized this little intervention. He admits he did. States they decided the only way to reach me was to have everyone here so I could see how serious this is. I ask him if he thought cornering me in public would make me more sympathetic to their cause. He states he thought it might make me actually listen. Derek jumps in, states they've spent the past week attempting to reach me individually, and I've shut everyone down. States this is their final chance to make me understand what's at stake. I tell him I understand perfectly what's at stake. I just don't care. Sandra, Michael's wife, gasps like I said something unforgivable. She tells me that's a horrible thing to say about my own parents. I turn to Sandra and ask where she was that evening when her husband was calling me a deadbeat in front of 200 people. She goes quiet. I ask if she tried to stop him or if she just stood there laughing with everyone else. She admits she didn't think it was amusing, but she didn't say anything because she didn't want to cause a scene. I tell her that's interesting because she seems fine with causing a scene right now when it benefits her. This is when things start breaking down. Father tells Sandra to stop speaking and let him handle this. He looks at me and states they came here to make me a formal offer. If I loan them the $26,000, they'll repay me over 10 years with 5% interest. They'll put it in writing, make it legal, whatever I want. I ask him why I would trust them to repay me when they couldn't even make their mortgage payments. He states that's different. The health crisis destroyed their finances and they're just now recovering. I point out that the health crisis ended years ago. Father's face gets crimson. He states I don't understand how difficult it's been for them. I remind him that I worked through the entire crisis doing deliveries while people were terrified of contracting the virus, and he never once asked me if I was okay. Derek interrupts and states that's not relevant to the current situation. I tell him everything is relevant because it shows exactly how much they've ever cared about me. Mother stops crying and her voice gets sharp. She states, "Fine, I want to discuss the past. Let's discuss it." States they treated me the way they did because I was a disappointment. States from the time I was 18, I made choices they couldn't be proud of. Skipping college, caring for grandmother instead of building a career, working jobs that embarrassed them when their associates asked what their youngest son was doing. States, every family gathering was painful because they had to explain why I wasn't like my brothers, ask her if she's genuinely blaming me for caring for her dying mother. She states that's not what she means. I ask her what she means then. She states I could have arranged for professional care, could have still pursued education, could have done something other than just surrendering my own future. I tell her grandmother couldn't afford professional care and nobody else in the family volunteered to pay for it. Father states that's because they assumed I wanted to do it since I wasn't doing anything else important. Michael tries to redirect the conversation. States we're getting off track and we need to focus on solving the immediate problem. I ask him what his immediate problem is since he's not the one losing a property. He admits his immediate problem is that mother and father are probably going to have to relocate, with him and his wife is losing her mind over it. Sandra shoots him a look but doesn't deny it. Derek adds that they're all going to be affected by this. States if mother and father lose the property, the family dynamics are going to be destroyed. States holidays will be strange. Gatherings won't happen the same way. Their children won't have their grandparents' property to visit anymore. I tell him that sounds really unfortunate, but I haven't attended a family holiday in 3 years, so it doesn't affect me. Tyler, my cousin, states that's because I chose to isolate myself. I remind him he's the one who posted about the retirement celebration online without inviting me. He states he thought someone else had invited me. This continues for 20 minutes. We're still standing in the produce area. Store employees are starting to observe us. Other customers are steering their carts around our group. Father keeps attempting to get the conversation back to the money. Mother keeps crying and then stopping and then starting again. The brothers and their wives keep contradicting each other about whose responsibility this is. Finally, I tell them I'll consider helping them under one condition. The whole group perks up. Father asks what the condition is. I tell them they have to stand up at the next family gathering in front of everyone who was at the retirement celebration and publicly apologize for how they treated me. Not just say sorry, but specifically list everything they said and did. I want them to explain to all those people that they lied about me, that I'm not a loser, that I actually have money and property and they've been treating me terribly for years despite knowing I could help them. The silence is remarkable. Father's face goes from hopeful to furious in approximately 3 seconds. He states absolutely not. States he's not going to humiliate himself in front of his associates and former co-workers. I tell him that's interesting because he had no problem humiliating me in front of those same people. He states that was different. I ask how. He doesn't answer. Mother states she'll do it. States if that's what it requires, she'll apologize publicly. Father tells her to be quiet. She turns on him and states perhaps if he'd been less concerned with his pride, they wouldn't be in this situation. This initiates an argument between my parents right there in the supermarket. Mother brings up the insurance money, states father's resentment about me receiving it has poisoned the whole family. Father states the insurance money should have been his and I manipulated a dying woman to steal it. Mother states he has no proof of that and he needs to release it. Michael tries to calm them down. Derek pulls me aside while our parents are arguing. He tells me the public apology thing isn't going to work, but maybe we can determine something else. States what if they write me a private letter apologizing for everything and promise to treat me better going forward. I tell him I'm not interested in private letters or promises. If they want my assistance, they can humiliate themselves publicly the same way they humiliated me. Otherwise, they can figure out their mortgage problems on their own. Derek states I'm being unreasonable. I tell him I'm being exactly as reasonable as they've been to me for the past 15 years. I walk away. They don't follow me this time. I think they finally understand I'm serious. I don't know what happens next. Maybe they'll lose the property. Maybe they'll find the money somewhere else. Maybe they'll swallow their pride and give me the public apology I demanded. Honestly, I don't particularly care which option they choose. For the first time in 15 years, I'm not the one who needs something from them. They need something from me, and that changes everything.